Hi everyone, welcome to the second day of the Gingham Quilt Along. I'm so glad you're here. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about fabric choices for your gingham quilt. So yesterday we went through more of the simple fabric combos where you have a light, a dark, a halftone, and it's really straightforward. Today we're going to do, that was kind of choosing your fabrics 101. This is choosing your fabrics 201. Things that we can do that are a little bit different, aren't necessarily traditional gingham like what you'd think of when you look at gingham, but still gives you kind of that gingham effect. And then some things that maybe don't necessarily give the exact gingham effect, but they're still really fun quilts that are really fun to make. So I pulled this example. So when we talk about mixing prints, so this is a more simple example of mixing prints. I've got my dark here. Obviously this is a lot more pink than what's in this bottom here, where you would say this definitely reads more white, but there's still a little bit of pink and red in there. This definitely reads more pink, but there's still a little bit of white and a little bit of red. And then our in-between fabric is about half and half. It's not exactly half and half, but it's really close. So when we put these together, I'll put these over here. When we put these together, you can see, whoop, dropped my board here. When we put these together, we've got a really nice gingham effect. See, this is how you know it's a live video because I'm not re-recording this. So you can see we've got our dark, we've got our light, and we've got our halftone. And so even though there's a lot of pattern going on here, there's still a lot of saturation, about half saturation, and then not nearly as much saturation. So really light saturation there. So we've still got our light, dark, halftone, just in a different way because we're doing a lot of different print here. So this is just one example of a way to mix a lot of prints together and still have a good, successful gingham result. One of the other things when we look at using prints, we can still use our traditional white like we've used before. But in this particular instance, the background woven, this is Aqua Essex, and the background of the fabric are still very similar, but when you look at it, because the tones in the actual leaves and the flowers are a lot darker, when you cut a pretty decent sized square of this, because these are, the gingham quilt squares are still a pretty decent size, you're gonna have this read as your darker, this is obviously gonna read as your lighter, and it really looks like, if you were to kind of think about it this way, your light came through and hit your dark, washed the flowers off, and this is kind of your halftone. So you've still got contrast. If you take a black and white picture of this, you can definitely see the difference between all three. But if these flowers were really small and there was a lot of field of this kind of aqua blue color in the background, then this blend wouldn't have enough contrast. But luckily these flowers are large enough and they cover enough that we can still see the blue. We can see where we're pulling the blue out, but it's dark enough that it doesn't just kind of run all together. So that's one particular option that you can do, is just kind of find a print you really like, figure out the background, pull a white and a woven, and it's going to look great. One of the other things that you can do is find a print that's predominantly one color. So I think I've got two examples here from Rifle Paper. I think this one from English Garden does a really nice job. Yes, there's some green in here, but with this is Moda Chambray in indigo, and this is English Garden in blue. And I think this looks really great together. Even though we've got a print, it's mostly blue. Even though we've got some lights in here, it's predominantly darker and more saturated than our halftone woven here. So I think we've got a really successful mix here as well. All right, one more here. Same navy or same indigo and white background, but in this instance we've got a different print. I believe this is from Menagerie. Here, we'll look at the end here. Yep, this is from Menagerie, and you know, we've still got mostly predominantly a dark background. We've got a little bit of green in here, a little bit of light blue, some other colors, but it's predominantly dark blue. So that indigo, the indigo chambray from Moda looks great, along with just our white here, or you could even use a cream color or pull out one of the really lighter colors from here. You could probably do a really light peach that's almost almost a white or kind of a blush color. So there are some other colors that you could bring into play as well. It doesn't always have to be white, mid-tone, dark. You could also, from your dark, pull one of the other really light colors that would contrast nicely with your halftone. And another print, this next print is, I think, really versatile. You can do a lot of different things with it. And this is the LaFleur print from Rifle Paper as well. So you've got white, then Moda Chambray, my favorite Moda Chambray in mom jeans, otherwise known as light blue. And then this particular print here from Rifle Paper's first line. And I think this makes a really nice mix. Even though this technically would be a little bit darker, just because it's a solid field of blue, it just does a really nice blend here because you've got some darker colors here, even though we've got a lighter background. So you could really do this one of two ways. You could treat this as your halftone, so you have a little more of the floral because you've got good contrast there. Your white and blue are coming together to form this particular fabric. Or you can do it the first way that I've shown as well. Both ways are going to produce a great result. So it's not the rules of ginghaming. Can we make ginghaming a word? The rules of ginghaming aren't, exact. There isn't some perfect blend and nothing else works. You can definitely mix it up a little bit. One of the other things that we can do is even mix, treat this again as our halftone, and then bring this fabric that has more of a field of blue and some of the dark colors in it. You're going to have to be careful about how you cut some of these particular flowers so that you don't have a block that's mostly flower, but it's something, if you're willing to take the time and kind of cut a little bit carefully and make sure you're getting more of this field of blue, this is going to be a successful blend. Or the good old, when in doubt, if a colorway has two different versions of a color, then you can mix those together, and again, you're going to have success. This is obviously darker, this is our mid-tone, and this is our light. You could even take the light out of it and put something that's halfway in between here, like perhaps that mid-blue that they both have, that periwinkle blue in between, would work great. Mom jeans in between these two would work great as well. So that's kind of working with prints. I will show an example. This particular print, I actually had to search pretty hard to find a print that I thought would be difficult to work with. It wouldn't be undoable, but with the scale of this particular print, it wouldn't be uncommon to get squares of very different values. When you are choosing a print, you want to choose a medium to a smaller scale print, or if you're going to have a large scale print, they all kind of need to be the same tone and color. Because in this, in this print, we'll unroll a little bit of it here. You can see we could have a square that's mostly peach. We could have squares, if we got in between, that are mostly navy and green. There's just a lot of variance in this particular print. Could you fussy cut it and make it work? Absolutely. If you're just going for a more random fun feeling, this would be a great fabric. But if you were going for that really light, dark halftone or a blend of two different colors, this would be a really hard fabric to work with. So just one example that might be a little more challenging to work with if you didn't have something that really coordinated well or didn't have a couple of different colorways to mix with this. So the next quilts we're going to talk about are two color quilts. So this actually, I've got a couple examples here. This one, so it doesn't necessarily read traditional gingham, but when you look at it, you can see it's fun. I just wanted to mix these colors together because I really like pink and green together. It's fun, it's different. We can even bring some of that kind of the plaid feeling. It kind of loses a little bit of the gingham and starts to feel more like a plaid when the pinks and the greens meet and kind of make the pink and green floral. And doing some interesting quilting lines on it kind of helped bring that together. So this is definitely an option with your gingham quilt as well. You can get a little bit crazy with the colors. One of my favorite quilts, this actually is not a gingham quilt, but the concept applies. I actually have to thank Kristen Perot for picking these fabrics. She actually picked them for Florida State, but they work great for Iowa State. So we've got this is Essex linen metallic in copper, which is actually red threads and gold, gold metallic. So we pulled out the gold and the cardinal red, and so where the yellow, I shouldn't say yellow, the gold. You would think I'd be doing better today. Iowa State won. They actually set records today. So this Iowa State family is very, very happy that they set a school record in yards today. So very good thing. Non-conference game, unfortunately, but still a great win. But we've got our gold and our cardinal red mixed here into our metallic. So let's take a look and see some of the other it's the other team colors we have, because it's a fun way to kind of mix some colors together and do a team quilt without doing a team quilt, if you will. So here's a great Green Bay Packer blend. So we've got our Dottie from the original Cotton and Steel. We've got the Essex Emerald Metallic. I had to think there for a second. And then we have this great sprinkle print also from Cotton and Steel. So these mixed together make a great quilt for somebody who's a Green Bay Packer fan. So we'll leave the gold here. The great thing is with the metallics, this gold does a great job of mixing with that metallic thread to kind of bring out the colors. So this is, I believe it's Storm. Yes, Storm. So it's navy threads with the metallic gold. So if you're a Notre Dame fan, you can do the navy, the gold, and then your blend there. So again, just another fun way to mix those together. And there's tons of the different Essex prints, or not prints, Essex wovens that have different color blends. They won't touch on every single team out there that's possible, but you're gonna have a lot of different coverage for a lot of different teams. One of the other things you can do is, instead of a woven in the middle, choose a novelty print, one of the team novelty prints. Choose two solids as your light and dark. In this case, they're not the light and dark, they're just the two different colors that you're trying to blend together for your school. And then just choose your novelty print as your in-between print. So whatever your school print is. I will caution, anytime you're using novelty prints, I highly recommend getting them from a quilt shop, because some of the ones, the non-quilt shop quality ones, can be a little bit iffy to work with. So I know it's hard to find good novelty prints. So fingers crossed. All right. And then last but not least, I've got a Christmas blend here. So we have obviously our light, and then I really have kind of a non-traditional halftone, but I wanted to show how this would work together. So even though this isn't what you would consider a halftone, it's got a lot of good color placement there. It's got some of the red, it's got some of the pink, it's got light green, it's got dark green. The swell and sweet lines have lots of different options for blending together. They've got a lot of different pink prints that would go great with the red. There's lots of different light green prints that you can mix with the darker green prints. So in this instance, I really mixed it up with having this middle color not be a pink or a light green, but it's a little bit of mix of everything. Our light is, mostly white, but it's got a little bit of the hollyberry print there. And then we've got the bright red Santas here. One of the other options too that I think would blend nicely, if you're going for something like that, with the green. You could even take the white out of the mix. And again, kind of similar to what we would do with the two-color team quilts, this would also be a fun mix. So thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to